One day, on the busy streets of Oxford, philosopher Phillipa Foot saw a speeding trolley fly by, swerving away just in time from a few civilians. Rather than assess the safety of the situation, Foot got to thinking, what if, when redirected, it hit one person instead? Would that have been the right thing to do? Just as she thought this, her good friend and sworn rival Jeremy Bentham came from around the corner. "Phillipa," he said, "we should not kill people because utilitarianism. We want the most amount of good for the greatest number of people." As Foot pondered this, renowned deontologist but total stranger Immanuel Kant stepped in and whispered, "It is not the consequences of actions that make them right or wrong, it's the intention. And I guess somehow diverting the trolley is the intent to murder." Foot then took these ideas and wrote a paper. She called it the Trolley Issue. Shortly after, her bestie Judith Jarvis Thompson gave it a sparkling rebrand. And that's how the Trolley Problem came to be.
Now it's obvious to you that that was a bullshit story. Yet, despite your intuitions, it likely didn't contradict with your understanding of the topic. Everything you knew about the trolley problem seemed to have made its sensible appearance. Except for the fact that both Kant and Bentham were both dead for over 100 years before Phillipa Foot even came to be. Why do the solutions predate the dilemma? Why has nobody bothered to read the original paper? That, and more, make up everything you didn't know about the trolley problem.
This is an exciting day. We are going to tackle the trolley problem.
Let's make one thing clear. Yes, it was about abortion. The trolley problem is often credited to one Phillipa Foot from her 1967 paper, The Problem of Abortion and the Doctrine of the Double Effect, a title you might not have even heard of because the word abortion is not advertiser-friendly. I want to give you a brief rundown of the paper, explain some of its context, lay out her arguments, and honestly, this might be the best part, highlight all the crazy thought experiments that came from the paper. She comes up with so many moral dilemmas in this. The trolley is just one of them. You know, the one where a judge has to choose between executing an innocent man or letting a mob enact vigilante justice. Or the one where some cave divers have to choose between drowning or blowing up their fat friend who's stuck in the entrance with sticks of dynamite. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Point is, though, that she came up with all these outlandish ideas, ultimately as an attempt to advance the debate on abortion. In the mid-20th century, when Foot wrote the paper, debates around abortion were just as littered with confusion and misunderstanding as debates nowadays.
Do you truly, in your heart of hearts, truly believe that this is a human being? This?
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt?
Yes.
This is a dolphin.
Now, the deepest source of the dilemma is the question of unborn rights. When we think of a baby about to be born, it seems absurd to think that the next few minutes or hours could make so radical a difference to its status. Yet as we go back in the life of the fetus, we are more and more reluctant to say that this is a human being and must be treated as such. So what does Foot think? Well, she offers no opinions on the issue and makes it clear that she has no intentions to. She saw fit to analyze another aspect of the abortion problem instead. What if we had to choose between the life of the mother and the life of the child? In more concrete terms, what if a pregnant mother had to undergo a hysterectomy to remove a cancerous uterus in order to survive? Rather than dip into the whole what constitutes human life debate, Foot sidesteps this by assuming, for argument's sake, that two human lives are being weighed against each other. Side note, this is a technique known as steel manning, where you formulate the strongest possible arguments for the opponents you want to take down. In philosophy, straw manning arguments is bad practice, and philosophers are encouraged to elevate the quality of discussion by assuming the strongest positions for that which they aim to oppose. So, we try to steel man the opposition in order to challenge ourselves to come up with the most convincing ideas. It's like power scaling. You look a lot more impressive when you take down a stronger argument. It's bonus aura. Anyways, Catholics at the time had an interesting take on this. Simply put, they advocated for a blanket ban on most cases of abortion. To deal with the scenarios where the life of the mother had to be weighed against the unborn child, they argued that there was a meaningful moral difference between directly intending for something to happen and merely foreseeing an unintended consequence. The distinction, dubbed the double effect, was used to justify things like killing in self-defense. Imagine if I were to chop you up in a meat grinder. Imagine if there was an attacker who was lunging at you with a weapon. You would be justified in fighting back, preserving your own right to life. What if, in the process, you accidentally kill your assailant? Well, Doctrine of Double Effect says it's fine, since it wasn't your direct intention to kill them, for them to die. You wanted the attack to stop. Even if you did foresee that swinging a wrench straight into your attacker's head would have killed them. Of course, if there were a way to pacify the attacker without risking your own safety, then surely that would be the preferable option. But in certain situations, killing, at least in the context of self-defense, is okay. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. Please don't let that be the only thing you take away from this video. Anyways, that's the Doctrine of Double Effect in a nutshell. And some Catholics at the time used this doctrine to support their views on abortion. Like you, Foot also found this doctrine confusing and wanted to examine it further. This is where her essay comes in. In essence, she wanted to argue that the Doctrine of Double Effect could in certain situations be morally objectionable, that the doctrine doesn't live up to the hype. Her arguments for this crescendo into three main scenarios, all of which are moral dilemmas in the context of abortion.
In 1967, British philosopher Phillipa Foot created a precursor to our self-driving car conundrum. The famous scenario she came up with is known as the trolley problem.
Scenario 1. Nothing can be done to save the lives of both mother and child, but it is possible to save the life of the mother by killing the child. The doctrine would dictate that the act of killing the child to save the mother would be morally impermissible, since, you're directly intending to kill the child. The death of the child is part of the intention. Yet given that the child cannot be saved in any case, it seems sensible to do something to at least save the mother. Better save one than none, right? Although the intention here is to bring about the death of the child, it nonetheless seems okay to do so, given that the child was doomed to begin with. Here, as Foot argues, the Catholic doctrine conflicts with that of most reasonable men. Scenario 2. It is possible to save the mother and kill the child, or kill the mother and save the child. If nothing is done, they will both die. Now the question here isn't should we act, because it seems obvious that we should. Provided, of course, that the certainties here are near absolute. Like scenario 1, it is better to save one life than none. The question then boils down to, how should we act? Who do we save? Foot in this scenario suggests that probably we should decide in favor of the mother when weighing her life against that of the unborn child, but it is interesting that a few years later we might easily decide it the other way. It's a strange pecking order, but I guess it seems right. Look, if the author of the paper isn't going to put too much effort into this last bit of the argument, then neither am I, okay? Nevertheless, we can move on to scenario 3. To save the mother, we must kill the child, say by crushing the skull, while if nothing is done, the mother will die, but the child can be delivered safely. Here, the Doctrine of Double Effect says it's morally impermissible to intervene. Any action would, by direct intention, bring harm to the child, harm that would otherwise not happen if no action were taken. Now, in general, we don't think it's okay to kill one innocent person to rescue another. Now what if we up the stakes? Kill an innocent person to save 5? Several thousand? Maybe even the fate of the universe? Well, in the words of Captain America,
we don't trade lives, Vision.
So, although these examples showed some situations where it seemed that the Doctrine of Double Effect was useful, Foot ultimately advocated for an explanation from the angle of a person's positive and negative duty. That our responsibility to do no evil outweighs our responsibility to help those in need. And that's the whole paper. The problem of abortion and the Doctrine of Double Effect. But now that you know this, a deeper problem emerges. Why didn't you know this? The content is heavy, but seems way too important to just toss away for a few neat thought experiments. Perhaps it's because abortion as a topic just isn't monetizable. It's difficult to navigate, requiring a precise... Who cares? That's not the point of the video. Where does the star of the show, the trolley, come in? The trolley in Phillipa Foot's original paper wasn't even a trolley. It was a runaway tram. And the person making the decision wasn't a random passerby, it was the driver of the trolley. I mean, look at this. You're not supposed to be here, you're supposed to be in there. The dilemma wasn't between pulling or not pulling, it was supposed to be between this and the judge case. Suppose that a judge or magistrate is faced with rioters demanding that a culprit be found for a certain crime and threatening otherwise to take their own bloody revenge on a particular section of the community. Now, the real culprit being unknown, the judge sees himself as able to prevent the bloodshed, only by framing some innocent person and having him executed. The question is why we should say, without hesitation, that the driver should steer for the less occupied track, while most of us would be appalled at the idea that the innocent man could be framed. There's nothing here about deontology or consequentialism. No mention of Kant and... Oh, wait a minute, there's Bentham. Bentham's in here. Well, Foot borrows his words for oblique versus direct intention when explaining the whole doctrine of double effect thing. That's about it. So where did all this talk of Kant and fat men and surgeons come from? I'll tell you exactly where. Judith Jarvis Thomson, Killing, Letting Die, and the Trolley Problem, from 1976.
This is the Trolley Problem, a version of an ethical dilemma that philosopher Phillipa Foot.
In that paper and her extensive body of work on the trolley problem that followed, we get the surgeon, the fat man, direct mentions of Kantian ethics, discussions on utility versus rights. The usual suspects. So, Judith Jarvis Thomson is to blame. She must be the reason for all this oversimplified pop philosophy, this TikTokified abstraction, this ridiculous, inconsequential talk of fat men and loops and utilitarianism and... Oh. Thomson discusses the abortion problem too, and a whole host of otherworldly issues, and not just in relation to the trolley. Her paper, A Defense of Abortion, came 2 years before Roe v. Wade, and famously redirected the philosophical focus from the rights of the fetus to the rights of the pregnant woman. I could go on about her intellectual contributions, but I think the point has been made. You know, I keep trying to antagonize the popularization of the problem, of trolleyology. It took the problem away from its original context, I screamed. But is that such a bad thing? It's now used in classrooms and lecture halls as a compelling thought experiment that leaves a lasting impression on students of philosophy, psychology, and many other disciplines. It's a great 101 tool for whatever it is that you want to teach. Even in ethics, abstracting away from real life isn't problematic. It is precisely in this abstraction of thought that we find the level of clarity necessary for real-life issues with many more moving parts. We break our ideas down so we can build them up again. Why does it even matter that Bentham and Kant weren't in the original paper? What matters is that the trolley problem is a tool for learning. It delivers moral theories in a digestible manner. Albeit watered down, the contemporary popular use cases aren't far off from Judith's version of the problem in the first place. That's what this is. That's what all of this is. Learning. You are learning. Did you learn something today? Anything from this video? Why did you click on this video? Was it this promise of new information? Well, the title says it all. That's the fun fact. The original thought experiment came from a paper that discussed abortion. It's a bit shocking, but then so what? I framed this as some sort of forbidden knowledge, but the information is out there. You could have typed in original trolley problem paper and found it in one Google search. You could have gleaned all the relevant information just from the title. Hell, you could have clicked on any one of these better researched, written, and edited videos here that all mention this little factoid. Maybe you did. And you're here, disappointed from not having learnt anything new. Or maybe you're not. Maybe you enjoyed learning about the origins of the trolley problem. You didn't realize that you would. Hurrah for philosophy content! You feel smarter and I gain a view on the video. Maybe even a like or a subscription. You and we didn't know that the trolley problem was about abortion for one good reason. Because it didn't matter. All you really need to know is that if you pull the lever, you're a consequentialist, and if you don't pull it, you're a deontologist. There. You either don't need to know anything else, or you're an ethicist, in which case you already do. So, what will you do now with this fun fact? This neat piece of trivia? The trolley problem was about abortion. Who cares? Why does it matter where things come from? We should just take them and co-opt them into whatever agenda we desire. You are not a learner, you are a consumer of information. You look at the supermarket shelf of YouTube videos and go, ooh, this thumbnail has a face in it and a red arrow. This one seems boring. Oh, this is the 30-minute video essay that the guy on Twitter was talking about. Now I can finally have my lunch. You are a customer whose knowledge has been entirely determined by market demand, a victim of the algorithm. And the worst part is, so am I. I didn't know any of this, and I probably wouldn't have if it weren't for the fact that I wanted to make my own spin on the trolley problem, to make more content. That's what people want. That's all this is. Content. When this video's over, you'll get 3 to 6 more recommended to you, to placate your never-ending hunger for pre-digested trivia. You will examine them each, floating towards the eye-catching thumbnails coupled with the most enticing titles. Maybe you'll click on the one that says, reacting to more trolley problem memes because it's made by a recognizable face with 2 million subscribers. Or maybe you'll click on the 2-hour-long video essay because how else will you drown out all your thoughts? Make a real choice. Don't let the algorithm make choices for you. Do something, please. Do anything. Resist the comforts of being uninvolved, an observer of your own life. There are real lives at stake, including the most crucial one of all, yours. How could you stand idly by, entertained by ludicrous trolleys and outlandish scenarios, when the very thing it was meant for has been completely pacified? If there is one thing you take away from this video, it should be the realization that you are not a bystander. You are the driver. And when you are in the driver's seat, what matters is that you choose. Choose and live with the consequences of your existence. Choose and live with the consequences of your life. Do it! Do it before you...
Here's the Catholic response to the trolley problem. If you're not familiar, it's a famous ethical dilemma involving a train.
Here before you, the lives of 100 people rest in your hand. You can push this button.
This is one of the 10 most famous imaginary experiments in the history of the trolley problem. However, have you ever considered the value of human life?
So you can either let the trolley continue on the path that it's on and it kills 5 people, or you can pull the lever and change its path, but it still kills 1 person. This is tough. It's a difficult decision. I mean, naturally, I would just like to continue on its course to kill the maximum amount of people possible.
I wouldn't pull the lever. Life isn't a commodity that can be bought. The value of a life isn't negotiable.
I pulled the lever. Saving a rich man for $500,000 outweighs the loss of another life in a cold calculation. Money can be good. A life is a life. Tough call, but that's my favorite.
This is the life. You might make a range of I won't this is how you choose traffic. Let me say I want to say about 5 minutes without time. So the need to point to you really like to be all these lines that actually makes sense. That's what say my advice.
Oh, Nicholas, this train is going to crash into these 5 people. Should we move the train to go this way, or should we let it go that way? Which way should the train go?
know that famous trolley problem? Well, it's been solved.
So Charis, what is the answer to the trolley problem?
Hello, my name is Charis Euphrainer. Top 5 philosophy thought experiments that will absolutely mess with your brain. Number 5. The ship of Theseus. Imagine replacing every single part of a ship piece by piece over time, once every original part is gone. Is it still the same ship, or something completely new? Number 4. The experience machine. If you could plug into a machine that gives you a perfect life forever, unlimited happiness, success, everything you want,